Before the darkness fell, there was a week drenched in sunlight. Just 1 week before November 15th, Amelia Vance and Jessica Riley sat together in a familiar cafe near the Columbia University campus, their laughter blending with the ambient noise of New York City. To any observer, they were the very picture of a perfect friendship. Mia, with her radiant smile and shimmering blonde hair, was excitedly talking about her plans for a summer internship at the prestigious Christie's auction house. Jessica, with her quiet and intelligent demeanor, listened intently, her eyes shining with what looked like admiration. "You're amazing, Mia," Jessica said, gently stirring her latte. "Everything just seems to come so easily to you." "Don't say that," Mia laughed, waving her hand dismissively. "I had to work my tail off for this thesis." "You're working hard too, Jess. That Future Innovators grant, if you get it, your whole life will change. I know you can do it." That was Mia, ever the optimist, always the cheerleader. She didn't notice, or perhaps was too accustomed to it to pay any mind, the way Jessica's smile never quite reached her eyes. She couldn't see the toxic comparison that was silently unfolding in her best friend's mind. Mia had it all: a privileged background, beauty, innate talent, and a future paved with gold. Jessica, meanwhile, had to fight for every opportunity, had to work twice as hard just to stand in Mia's shadow. That scholarship wasn't just about the money. It was validation, a ticket to finally escape the label of Amelia Vance's best friend. The tragedy began on a Tuesday evening, 3 days before Mia disappeared. While searching for reference materials for her own thesis in the university's digital archive, Mia stumbled upon an old paper from 2 years prior. The author was a graduate student she didn't know. As she skimmed it, a strange sense of déjà vu washed over her. She opened the draft of the thesis Jessica had proudly shown her last week. Mia's heart seemed to stop. They weren't just similar. Entire paragraphs, arguments, and analyses were copied almost verbatim. Mia's first feeling wasn't anger, but a profound, hollowing disappointment. Her best friend, the person she trusted most, had built her future on a foundation of lies. She couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning with the question of what to do. To stay silent was to be complicit, but to tell the truth was to destroy the life of the friend she loved. November 15th arrived under a heavy sky. The argument between Mia and Liam that afternoon wasn't a major fight, but it struck at the heart of their anxieties. "You can't keep covering for her, Mia," Liam had said over the phone, his tone edged with frustration. "This is plagiarism. It's not just wrong, it's unfair to people like you who actually do the work." "You don't understand, Liam," she had replied, her voice weary. "Her life isn't like mine. I just want to give her a chance to fix it herself." The conversation ended in silence. Both felt they were right, and the distance between them seemed to widen. It was why, when Liam called back that evening, both were trying to make peace. At 9:42 p.m., the FaceTime call connected. The split screen showed 2 different worlds. Liam, amidst his cluttered dorm room, tried to make her smile. Mia, in her perfect apartment, smiled back. But her smile was strained. She had made her decision. She would confront Jessica tonight. She had already sent the text to arrange the meeting. Their conversation drifted, but an undeniable tension lingered beneath the surface. And then, suddenly, the smile vanished from Mia's face. She froze, her eyes fixed on something toward the front door, an angle just out of the camera's view. Her expression shifted from surprise to an unreadable awareness, which quickly morphed into undisguised fear. "Wait," she whispered, her once clear voice now as thin as a thread. "Someone's here." Liam's heart skipped a beat. "Mia? Who's there? Did you let someone in?" He sat bolt upright, his every sense on high alert. He received no answer. Instead, what he heard through the phone's speaker was not a scream, not the sound of shattering glass. It was a short, dry, heavy thud, the sound of forceful impact against something soft. Immediately after, Mia's phone fell. The last image Liam saw was a corner of the white ceiling, and then everything went black. "Mia! Mia! Answer me! Are you there? Mia!" Liam screamed, but he was met only by a dead, chilling silence from the other end. He frantically called back again and again, but every call went straight to voicemail. The unease of moments before had become a tidal wave of pure terror, drowning his reason. Detective Isabella Rossi arrived on the scene around 11 p.m. She had been with the NYPD for 15 years and had seen every kind of crime scene imaginable. But the one in Amelia Vance's apartment had its own strange quality. It was too clean. The scent of lilies hung in the air. Every book on the shelf was perfectly aligned. A MacBook sat open on the desk. No foreign footprints, no stray hairs, nothing to suggest a violent struggle. It was a perfection that was deeply unsettling. "I want forensics to go over every square inch," Rossi commanded, her voice cutting through the silence. "Check for prints on the doorknobs, light switches, tabletops. Bag any hairs, fibers, anything. I want to know who was in this room." While the forensics team worked, she began the preliminary investigation. She interviewed the doorman, an older man who swore he saw no strangers enter or leave. She spoke to a nosy neighbor, a woman who paid attention to everything, but she too had heard nothing unusual. Liam Parker was brought to the precinct. In the cold interrogation room, he recounted his story with a coherence that comes from replaying a traumatic event hundreds of times in one's mind. But when Rossi asked about the argument that afternoon, he broke. He admitted he had been harsh, that he had pressured Mia. The guilt and self-recrimination were written all over his face, making Rossi's younger colleagues suspicious. But Rossi saw something else. She saw the pain of loss, not the deceit of a guilty man. His alibi was confirmed within hours. He was too far away to have committed the crime. The case grew more complex. No forced entry, no struggle, no witnesses. The perpetrator was either a ghost or someone Mia had trusted completely. The next day, the investigation widened to Mia's social circle. And that is when Detective Rossi met Jessica Riley. Jessica entered the interrogation room with swollen eyes, her hands trembling. She looked like someone who had been crying all night. Rossi offered her a seat and a glass of water. "Thank you for coming in, Jessica. I know this is a difficult time," Rossi began, her voice gentle. "Detective," Jessica sobbed, "please find her. Mia, she's my best friend. I don't know how I'll live without her." Rossi let Jessica talk. She spoke of their friendship, of beautiful memories, painting a perfect picture. Then, like a master actress, she shifted the narrative. "But she's been under so much pressure lately, especially with her thesis." She hesitated, as if debating whether to reveal a secret. Her relationship with her advisor, Professor Alistair Finch, was very tense. "I saw them arguing in the library a few times. He's a very intense person. I was afraid he was pressuring her about something. Jessica's statement, so emotional and seemingly sincere, planted a powerful seed of suspicion. The investigation immediately pivoted to the professor. Alistair Finch was a difficult man. He was arrogant, condescending to the detectives, and answered questions with academic superiority. He admitted to pushing Mia academically, but vehemently denied any involvement in her disappearance. And then, the police found the smoking gun. A short diary entry dated 2 days before she disappeared read, "Met with Prof. Finch today. He threatened me again about my thesis. He said I would live to regret it if I didn't do as he said. I'm so scared. I feel like he could do anything." For the investigative team, this was damning. They had a motive, a history of conflict, and now a direct threat. They believed it was only a matter of time before they had enough to arrest the professor. The case seemed close to being solved. But Detective Rossi still felt that something was wrong. She returned to Mia's apartment, sitting silently amidst the quiet. She looked at the perfect order and wondered, would a spontaneous attack from an angry professor leave a scene so pristine? She called Officer Chen, head of the Digital Forensics Unit. "Chen, I want you to re-examine everything on Mia's devices. Not just what's visible. I want you to find what was deleted, what was hidden, what was encrypted. Make it your top priority." Chen and his team worked around the clock. They were faced with a folder encrypted with a complex algorithm, not a standard one. It seemed Mia had set it up herself. Hours turned into a day, then 2. Pressure from superiors mounted, urging them to close the case with Finch as the prime suspect. But Rossi held firm. Late on the 3rd day, a cheer erupted from the lab. Chen had done it. He had broken the final layer of encryption. Rossi rushed over. On the screen, a series of files appeared. She began to read. Her heart stopped. It wasn't evidence against Finch. It was a meticulously compiled dossier detailing academic fraud committed by Jessica Riley. Screenshots, highlighted essays, and an audio file of a conversation where Jessica admitted to referencing another student's work. And then the final, painful piece of evidence. A text message sitting in the drafts folder of Mia's phone that she never got to send to Jessica. "Jess, we need to talk. Tonight, 9:30, at my place. This can't go on." A chill ran down Rossi's spine. They had been played. That diary entry was a fake. Jessica's performance was too perfect. She understood everything. When Jessica Riley was summoned a second time, she still tried to play the victim. But when Detective Rossi laid the printouts from the recovered folder on the table, the charade was over. Jessica's face changed. The performance of grief was replaced by the pure panic of a cornered animal. And then, in the cold, sterile interrogation room, she confessed. The full, horrific truth of that fateful night began to unfold. It was not a premeditated crime. It was a chain reaction of impulsive decisions, each one worse than the last. After being confronted by Mia, Jessica had begged and pleaded. But when Mia turned away to answer Liam's call, Jessica, in her desperation, reached for the decorative object on Mia's desk. It was an abstract bronze sculpture with a heavy black marble base. The sharp, hard corner of the marble base struck the back of Mia's head. That was the dry thud Liam heard. But Mia wasn't dead. A faint groan escaped her lips. That sound pushed Jessica over the final edge of reason. Panicked that Mia was alive and would identify her, she acted again. She closed her eyes and swung the heavy object with all her might. This time, there was only silence. The silence brought Jessica back to reality. A cold, terrifyingly rational part of her brain took over. She had to get away with it. She had to frame someone else. First, she wiped her fingerprints from the statue, placing it back on the desk, but knocking over a lamp to suggest a minor struggle. Next, she opened Mia's laptop and typed the fake diary entry to incriminate Professor Finch. The most difficult part was disposing of the body. She went to Mia's storage closet and found what she needed: a large, hard-shell suitcase with wheels. With a monstrous effort, her heart hammering against her ribs, she folded her friend's lifeless body and forced it inside. Waiting until nearly 2 a.m., when the building was asleep, she dragged the heavy suitcase out, using the service elevator at the end of the hall to get to the basement. She drove to Harriman State Park, a place they had once gone camping. She remembered a specific remote trail. Dragging the suitcase deep into the woods, she opened it one last time. She had no shovel. She used a tire iron from her trunk and her bare hands to dig a shallow grave in the damp earth. After placing Mia's body inside, she covered it with dirt, then carefully arranged leaves and branches over the top. On the drive back, she threw the statue, the murder weapon, off a bridge into a deep, dark river. She returned home just before dawn, showered, disposed of her soiled clothes in a public trash can far from her home, and prepared to play the part of a devastated, worried friend. Her performance was ready. Jessica Riley's confession led police to where she had buried her friend. With the recovery of Mia's body, justice, in a legal sense, was served. Jessica was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder. But for those who remained, the nightmare was far from over. The Vance family had lost their beloved daughter forever. Professor Finch was exonerated, but the stain on his career would never fully wash away. And then there was Liam Parker. Finally, everyone understood the source of his profound guilt. The argument he'd had with Mia that afternoon was about Jessica. Liam had been the first to suspect her plagiarism and had urged Mia to confront her, to do the right thing. The guilt Liam carried was not that of a liar, but that of a survivor. He was left to live the rest of his life with the knowledge that his advice, however well-intentioned, was what had pushed the woman he loved into that fatal meeting. The story of Amelia Vance is not just a murder case. It is a painful reminder of the price of integrity in a world of deception, and of the terrifying truth that the most fearsome monsters sometimes hide behind the smiles of those we trust the most. It is a tragedy of ambition, of jealousy, and of a friendship that was ultimately devoured by its own darkness.